Welcome back to the English Speaking Podcast, the show that helps you learn real English through natural, clear conversation. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're talking about a book that changed how millions of people live and how it can help you learn English too. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. We'll talk about the power of small changes, why habits matter more than motivation, and how to apply this to your own English journey. Let's get into it. You know, when we think about success, our minds usually jump to these massive, heroic leaps, the overnight sensation, right? But what James Clear really talks about in Atomic Habits is, well, it's a total game changer. He argues that success isn't built in those huge transformations. It's felt in the small, almost invisible daily habits. He puts it really directly. Success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations. How does this seemingly simple idea really redefine our whole approach to achieving things?
It's a huge shift, isn't it? We're always so focused on the results we see right now.
Yeah.
But Clear tells us, look at your trajectory. Where are you headed? He says your outcomes, things like your net worth, your fitness, even your knowledge, they're just lagging measures of your habits.
Yeah.
Think about it like this. Your bank balance reflects your spending habits from the past. Your weight reflects your eating and exercise habits. And crucially for our listeners, your English level is a direct result of your consistent learning habits. It boils down to you get what you repeat.
That's fascinating. So it means time. Time isn't neutral. It actually becomes either your biggest ally or, well, your silent enemy, depending on those habits. Good habits, compounding over time, they create incredible results. Clear calls habits the compound interest of self-improvement. It's such a great phrase. Imagine just getting 1% better every day. Sounds tiny, right? Day to day, almost nothing. But over the long haul, that adds up to something massive.
And that delay, that's often why people get so frustrated and give up. They hit what Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. You feel like you're putting in all this effort, maybe in your English studies, but you're just not seeing the progress. You feel stuck. But the book explains that usually doesn't mean you're failing. It often means you just haven't broken through that plateau yet. All the effort is building up, kind of under the surface. When you do finally break through, people might look and say, wow, overnight success. But it's really the result of all those tiny, consistent steps you took. He stresses that the most powerful outcomes of any compounding process are delayed. So patience and just sticking with it are absolutely key.
Which brings us to another really critical point he makes. The difference between goals and systems. We're all taught to set goals, right? I want to be fluent in English. I want to run a marathon. But he challenges that. He says, if you want better results, then forget about setting goals. Focus on your system instead. And here's the real kicker. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Wow. It's all about the process, not just the end point.
Exactly. He actually goes as far as to say that true long-term thinking is goalless thinking. It's not about hitting one specific target and then stopping. It's about setting up this endless cycle of continuous refinement. Keep improving. Your progress, in the end, it's determined by your commitment to the process. It's flipping the focus entirely from outcome to process.
Okay, so let's bring this right back to you, the listener, and your English journey. That 1% better every day idea. What could that actually look like? It doesn't have to be huge. Could it be listening to just one short English podcast clip on your commute? Or maybe reviewing just one new English word while your coffee brews? What tiny, repeatable English action could you commit to doing daily?
And if you ever felt completely stuck learning English like you're working hard, but just not getting anywhere, remember that plateau of latent potential, that feeling, that stagnation. It might actually mean you're really, really close to a breakthrough. All those hours listening, speaking, reading, they are adding up, even if the results aren't obvious yet. Consistency is the magic ingredient, truly.
So maybe instead of just focusing on, I want to be fluent, which is, let's face it, a huge and kind of vague goal, try shifting your focus to, what's my English learning system? What are the specific daily things you can do that will, over time, inevitably lead to fluency? Now let's dive into something maybe even deeper. How your habits don't just change what you do, but actually shape who you are. Clear suggests a lot of habit change fails because we're focusing on, well, the wrong thing or maybe in the wrong way. It's not just about the action itself.
That's right. He talks about these 3 layers of behavior change. There are outcomes, that's what you get, like a good test score. Then processes, that's what you do, like studying vocabulary every day. But the deepest layer is identity. That's about what you believe about yourself. And with what he calls identity-based habits, the focus isn't on the result, it's on who you wish to become.
And that's where the real power, the intrinsic motivation, comes from, isn't it? When a habit becomes part of who you see yourself as, you don't need as much willpower. You just do it because that's who you are. So the really powerful question becomes, who is the type of person that could achieve the outcome I want? Like, for you listening, who is the type of person who speaks English fluently and confidently?
And he boils this down to a really simple two-step process. First, decide the type of person you want to be.
Well.
Second, prove it to yourself with small wins. Every single action you take, no matter how small, is like casting a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Your identity isn't set in stone. It actually grows out of your habits. Each small action reinforces that belief about yourself.
So applying this to your English learning,
Right.
maybe try shifting from I need to learn English to I am becoming an English speaker. How does that small change in wording feel? Does it change how you approach your daily practice?
Absolutely. Think about it. Every time you choose to read an English article, or listen to a bit of an English conversation, or try to form an English sentence, even if it's tiny, you're casting a vote for that identity of English speaker.
Yeah.
And those votes add up. They build real evidence in your own mind about who you are becoming.
Okay, so we've got it. Tiny habits are crucial. Shaping identity is key. But practically, how do you actually build these good habits? James Clear gives us this brilliant framework, the 4 laws of behavior change. These laws map onto that basic habit loop. Cue, craving, response, reward. And the laws are simple statements. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
Yeah, and fundamentally, a habit is just a behavior that has been repeated enough times to become automatic. These 4 laws are basically a manual for making that repetition process as smooth and, well, effective as possible.
Right. Let's start with law 1. Make it obvious. One really interesting point here is that often we think we lack motivation, but actually we just lack clarity. If you're not even sure what to do or when to do it, starting is incredibly hard. He suggests things like a habit scorecard, just to notice your current behaviors, or even pointing and calling, like verbally saying your actions to make unconscious habits conscious.
And our environment plays such a massive role here, often without us realizing. Clear says, environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. We naturally notice cues that stand out. So it just makes sense, doesn't it? Make the cues for your good habits really, really obvious. Want to read more English? Leave the book on your bedside table. Want to practice vocabulary? Put your flashcards right next to the kettle. Make it visible.
That's super practical. And he gives us 2 great strategies for this. First, habit stacking. You link your new habit to one you already do. Formula is so simple. After current habit, I will new habit. So, for you learning English, maybe? After I brush my teeth, I will say 1 English sentence out loud. Simple. Second is implementation intention. This adds time and location. I will behavior at time and location. Like, I will review my English notes for 5 minutes at 8 a.m. at my kitchen table. It removes the guesswork.
And the flip side for breaking bad habits, make it invisible. Reduce your exposure to the triggers. If your phone distracts you from studying English, maybe put it in another room during that time. Make the cue invisible. Clear argues, quite convincingly I think, that self-control is a short-term strategy. It's much easier to avoid the temptation in the first place than to constantly fight it off.
Okay, so thinking about your English learning, how can you make those learning cues really obvious in your space? Maybe it's putting English books where you'll see them, or setting a reminder on your phone. What small visual prompt could work for you?
And now about habit stacking. What existing routine could you attach a small English practice to? After I check my email, I will read 1 English news headline. Or making distractions invisible, maybe logging out of social media accounts on your computer before you start your English lesson.
All right, law 2. Make it attractive. This one really zeroes in on motivation, what makes us want to act. Clear explains that habits are driven by dopamine. It's not just the reward itself, but the anticipation of the reward that really gets us going. The more attractive we find something, the more likely we are to do it.
Which leads perfectly to temptation bundling. This is a really clever technique. You pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. So you might say, I will only watch my favorite English TV show after I've done 15 minutes of English speaking practice. You bundle the want with the need.
And the social angle here is huge, too. We're wired to imitate others, especially people we're close to, large groups, and people we see as powerful or successful. So one of the most effective ways to make a habit attractive is to join a group or culture where that habit is the norm. Find your tribe. That desire to fit in is incredibly strong.
And the inversion for bad habits. Make it unattractive. You can do this by really focusing on the benefits of avoiding the bad habit. Remind yourself why you want to quit, or associate it with negative feelings. Think about how sluggish you feel after too much passive screen time, for example.
So for your English learning, how could you use temptation bundling? Maybe you only get your favorite snack while you're reviewing English vocabulary.
Or think about the social side. How could joining an online English forum or finding a language partner make practicing English feel more attractive and normal? When you see others doing it, enjoying it, succeeding, it makes you want to do it too.
Law 3. Make it easy. This is all about friction. We often get stuck planning or thinking what Clear calls motion instead of actually doing, which is action. And humans, well, we naturally follow the law of least effort. We're programmed to take the easiest path.
So the strategy is straightforward. Reduce the friction for your good habits, make them as easy as possible to start, and conversely, increase the friction for bad habits, make them harder to do. He talks about priming your environment to make good actions easier down the line. Set things up for success.
And this is where the 2-minute rule comes in. It's brilliant. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. The point isn't to do the whole thing in 2 minutes. It's just to make starting ridiculously easy. Read 1 page, put on your running shoes, review 1 flashcard. The idea is standardize before you optimize. You can't improve a habit you don't even have yet. Just start. These tiny starts are decisive moments.
And the inversion, making bad habits difficult, often involves using commitment devices. These are choices you make now that lock in better future behavior. Things like setting up automatic bill payments or buying healthy food in smaller packages. These one-time actions can automate good decisions and make it harder to slip up later.
So for your English learning, what's an English habit you could start in under 2 minutes? Maybe just opening your textbook, learning 1 new word, saying a single sentence aloud. The key is just to start the motion.
And how can you lower the friction? Keep your English materials easily accessible. Have your favorite podcast app ready to go. Could you use a commitment device? Maybe telling a friend your study plan for the week to make yourself more accountable.
Okay, finally, Law 4, make it satisfying. This one is absolutely critical for making habits stick long-term. Clear has this cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. Our brains love immediate gratification. We need to feel successful right away, even in a small way.
And this is where something as simple as a habit tracker can be incredibly powerful. Just marking an X on a calendar each day you do your habit. It gives you that immediate visual proof of progress. It feels good. It makes you want to keep the streak going, which leads to the don't break the chain idea. But he adds a really important caveat. Never miss twice. It's okay to slip up occasionally, life happens, but get back on track immediately the next day. That's crucial. Oh, and a quick note on trackers, remember Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Don't get so obsessed with the X that you forget the real goal is the learning itself.
And for bad habits, the inversion is make it unsatisfying. This often involves adding an immediate cost to inaction. That's where things like accountability partners or habit contracts come in. Knowing someone else will know if you skipped your practice or having some kind of pre-agreed penalty, that can be a surprisingly strong motivator.
So, thinking about your English practice, how can you make it immediately satisfying? Maybe it's using an app that gives you points or positive feedback, or simply the feeling of accomplishment when you tick off that box on your tracker.
And who could be your accountability partner? A teacher, a study buddy, someone you check in with regularly. And how will you make sure you never miss twice? If you miss your English practice today, what's your specific plan for getting right back to it tomorrow? Okay, so you've built these habits. They're obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. But what about keeping it going? Long-term mastery? Clear brings up the Goldilocks rule. Basically, we feel most motivated when we're working on tasks that are right on the edge of our abilities. Not too easy, because that's boring. Not too hard, because that's discouraging. Just right.
This is so important because, honestly, the biggest threat to success long-term isn't usually failure. It's boredom. Once a habit becomes automatic, it can feel, well, less exciting. But the key difference, he says, is that professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. Mastery requires pushing through that boredom.
He also briefly mentions genetics. Not that you're locked in, but that choosing habits that kind of align with your natural strength can make things feel easier. Genes don't determine your destiny, but they might clarify, as he puts it, what areas might be more fruitful to focus your hard work on.
And finally, there's a potential downside to automatic habits. We can stop paying attention to the small details, the little errors. That's why true mastery requires habits plus deliberate practice. You need that conscious effort, that reflection and review to keep improving and not just plateau on autopilot.
So for your English studies, how can you apply that Goldilocks rule? Are you finding tasks that challenge you just enough, pushing yourself slightly beyond your comfort zone?
And how can you prepare to handle the inevitable boredom? Can you commit to your English practice even when it doesn't feel fun? And how will you build in that deliberate practice and reflection? Maybe recording yourself speaking, actively seeking feedback, reviewing past mistakes consciously. That's how you move towards real mastery. When you pull all this together, think about this. Every single tiny action you take consistently, or the actions you don't take, it's not just about getting a result like fluency. It's fundamentally about casting a vote for the kind of person you are becoming.
That really hits home. Your future self, that confident, fluent English speaker you want to be, is literally being built piece by tiny piece by the small choices you make today, every single day. What vote will you cast for that future self right now? Thanks for listening to this episode of the English Speaking Podcast. I hope you learned something useful and that you're inspired to start building small daily habits that move you closer to fluency. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share it. And don't forget to subscribe for more conversations, tips, and real English learning every week. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep speaking English with confidence.